Hello, welcome to this video where I review a clay cracking kit that I picked up for $5 at Five Below. So this kit comes in a nice box. There were a variety of different themes you could pick. In this case, I chose the sweets theme with a variety of different paint colors. So let's go ahead and crack this open and see what's inside. So as you can see, the box is about halfway full, so they could have definitely used a smaller packaging. But the first thing I pull out is the instruction book. And the instructions are pretty detailed. They tell you exactly everything that you need to know. There's the instructions on how to craft different shapes and how long it takes for paints to dry. The paints that they provide you are just small acrylic paints. There's black, blue, pink, brown, and yellow. I noticed later on that they give you a lot of black. I know it's mainly for the panda and the faces on the thing, but I wish they would have given you like a darker brown or a different color you could have used for the sweets. They also encourage you to mix some of the paints. Like you'll see some greens in the examples that you could get with mixing the yellow and the blue. They also give you some air-dried clay. There are 2 packages of it, and I actually suggest you don't go and squish it like I did. I think this gave me a little bit of trouble later on when I go to remove it from the packaging, so I would just leave it as is if you were to pull it out. They also give you a vial of what would be like a fixative. Usually it's nail polish, but it is washable with water. And lastly, they give you a small paintbrush. So in the instructions, as I mentioned before, they're pretty detailed, and they do give you pretty much a step-by-step way of how to do this, and the approximate times it takes for everything to dry. So I highly suggest you read those before you go ahead and craft them, just so you know how much time everything takes. One of the first things the instructions do is actually advise you to put down some wax paper. I didn't have any wax paper, so I just used a little baking mat, and the clay didn't really stick to anything else except for my nail polish. So it was pretty much mess-free in my case. So let's go ahead and get started with creating the cupcake. I'm going to go ahead and do this one in live time, and then everything else is going to be sped up with a time lapse and a little song underneath. But as you can see, I have a little bit of problem getting the clay out of the bag because I went ahead and squished it earlier on. So I highly don't recommend that. And I have to kind of portion the clay, knowing that I have to make about 3 things from each package. So this one I kind of eyeball it. When I get to the second package, I kind of measure it out and into 3 equal pieces. So everything gets about the same amount of clay. So let's go ahead and just roll this one out. And we're going to be making the frosting for the cupcake. So first thing we do is we have to make a snake for the cupcake, so we can use it for the icing, and then we also have to make a round part for the base. So we just roll the clay onto the mat to make a long, skinny shape. Not too good at it. So I did say they encourage you to use the paintbrush quite a bit, and in this case, they use it as a tool to make the paper lining for the cupcake. And I thought that was pretty creative, and it's a nice way to use something in a way that it's not intended. So it really encourages you to do stuff like that. I know later on during the Pop Tart, they encourage you to kind of use it as a knife in order for you to shape out the piece of the frosting. So let's go ahead, roll up the icing for the cupcake. And we have to be careful because the clay really does like sticking to itself. So if you mess up, there is a chance that it won't be too easy to remove. So we just got to be careful with that. With the cupcake done, let's just go ahead and move on to the time-lapse version. I will see you when everything is created. Now, at the end here, I had a little bit of clay left over because I didn't measure things out properly. So I went ahead and I made just a little bit of like kind of a mint or just some sort of sweet that I could kind of use as a way to test this, make sure everything was dry, and just kind of throw away if it didn't work. That was just kind of like my guinea pig. So after 12 hours, everything was dry. I admit that I didn't get to it like 12 right away in 12 hours. It took me closer to 24 with work and everything. So luckily in the end, the clay wasn't too hard when I went to go crack it. So I'm glad that that worked out like that. Now moving on to the paint. I don't show it here, but I did have a little bit of a problem occasionally opening the paint. The colors that they give you, they give a good tip saying that if you want something a little bit lighter, you can go ahead and just water it down a little bit. And you're able to mix the colors. I didn't in this video. I didn't want to ruin any of the colors. So they show green in the example. So there was one part where I tried painting yellow over the blue, and it did give a little bit of a lighter color. I also have a little water cup, so you'll hear a little bit of like sloshing around as I rinse the brush between things. So let's go ahead and just paint this, and you'll hear the sounds of me shuffling around, washing the brush, and just opening and closing the paints. I will see you in a little bit. So I mentioned earlier on that I had a complaint with the amount of black that they give you. I feel like they could have given you something other than a panda to create, or even if the panda was like a darker brown or something. It would allow for the chocolate to just be a brown instead of having to rely on mixing paints. Because the color that made the most mess for me was black. And it would also smudge into the other colors. So the only complaint I have with the paints really was the black paint. After the paint dries, we can go ahead and paint on the glaze. Paint took probably 3 or 4 hours to dry. It doesn't give you the exact time in the instructions. I wanted to make sure everything was completely dry before I painted on the glaze. So, like I said before, it's probably a clear nail polish. So this does wash off with water. So if you get it on your hands or other surfaces, it does easily come off. So I'm very thankful for that. I didn't have to worry about any massive cleaning. Let's go ahead and paint this glaze over everything. I pretty much used the entire vial. I wanted to make sure I had enough, and I go over the pieces a couple times each just to make sure, really getting into the deep crevices and stuff. So let's go ahead and paint that, and I will see you when it's time to crack the clay. Alright, let's get started with the clay cracking. We have my little guinea pig here, and I'm very happy that it's successful. Let's go ahead and crack the others. So this was my first experience with clay crafting, and it was a pretty big success. I look forward to doing a few more in the future, and I think this kit is worth its money. I recommend it.